Hello and welcome back after a short break to Casting Views, the podcast with your host. Who are we? Well, I'm Dan,
And I'm Lou.
and we pick a random topic each week and we cast our views. Except this month we've got a theme, so the topics will be random but in a theme, which makes them not random potentially. How are you, Lou? Anyways, good to be back, right? It's been
It
a
is
couple of
good to be
weeks.
back. Yeah, we've had a little bit of like a hiatus. Is that the right word to use?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, I
sounds
think so
right
as well.
anyway.
If anybody has any, if we're wrong, tweet at us. Yeah, it is good to be back. To be fair, it feels like ages since we did do this for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's probably, if you think about it, it was probably 3 weeks because we would have recorded one early in the week and then we've had 2 weeks. But yeah, well, we're back and better than ever, right?
Yeah, yeah, better than ever. No illnesses really. You've not got
Which is
COVID
good.
anymore.
No, I
I've
haven't
not
got
got any
COVID.
COVID. No broken bones
Actually,
or anything like
you,
that.
you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't
Yeah,
have said
yeah, yeah. Because now we're
that.
struck down. Next week on Casting Views.
Yeah, you're on coughing views. We are. So yeah, we are refreshed, reinvigorated. So we're going to be better than ever, right? So before we get stuck into that, we'll have a quick promo from some friends of ours, and it is Talking Smack. I think we've mentioned them before. That's Talking Smack, SMAC, superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. So as the name suggests, they kind of talk about all those things. So comic related shows, games, etc. So, and actually, if we can get the contracts agreed and signed off kind of WWE style in time, we've got them appearing on the show in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, we'll keep you posted of that. So sit back and have a listen to their promo.
Do you love comics, movies, video games, and more? We do too. Come tune in to Josh and our cast of colorful co-hosts on Talking Smack. Available on all your favorite podcasting platforms.
And we're back. Now, I thought, or we thought we'd start off with a themed month this month, although it's going to be the middle of the month, so it's going to cross 2 months. But still, we're going to do 4 episodes, and that's a month in my head. Titled Unusual, right? And
Yeah.
so our first episode is going to be on unusual laws and customs. You know, the kind of thing you hear. And actually, some of mine, do you know what? I didn't even bother to check if they were real or kind of made up because, I don't think we caveat anywhere that in-depth research is our forte, right? So, but you kind of know the ones.
I'm sure in reality as well, people listening to this will probably have heard in like various like culture references, like some of these as well. Because I think we're going to kind of travel all over the world with this.
Yeah.
And kind of see where we are. So I mean, if you have ever been kind of under the cosh for breaking any of the laws or customs or anything that we talk about, please do get in touch. That would be amazing.
Well, I know one for a fact. I think I'm going to give it away. The whole state will have broken this law. I'm sure of it. So I found one in America. But yeah, so I almost don't want to know if some of these are fake because I want to believe they're real. But I think a lot of these are like enshrined in history, aren't they? So they're not, you wouldn't be held to account for them now. They're just like written 200 years ago or something, aren't they? And it's one of those things that, well, nobody's ever going to bring you up for it now. So yeah, I've got a load. They're all fairly short, and they're kind of around the world. So I thought, yeah, if I reel off a couple, see what you think of them because I'm laughing because they are funny. Yeah, we'll go from there. So if I'll try start on the UK ones, I found a website. This one weirdly, well, not weirdly because it's laws, but it was the lawyerportal.com, and it said it's illegal in the UK to hold a salmon under suspicious circumstances.
Do you know what's really annoying is this was my first one as well.
Oh, was it? Section 32 of the Salmon Act 1986 stipulates that it's an offence to handle salmon under suspicious circumstances. The section creates an offence in England and Wales, but any person who receives or disposes of any salmon in circumstances where they believe or could reasonably believe that the salmon has been illegally fished, the maximum penalty is 2 years imprisonment. So I kind of get the illegal fishing bit, but it's the handling a salmon under suspicious circumstances.
Yeah, and like, how do you prove that a person believed or reasonably believed that the salmon had been illegally fished? Like, do you see them like take it out and like slide it into their jacket pocket really quickly because all of a sudden they realise that they've got illegal salmon on them. I find it strange. Like, how would the police ever turn around and think, yeah, that man there, that's a suspicious salmon that's been poached?
You know the old kind of, what's the word, caricature, for want of a better word, of the wheeler dealer in like the 80s. I've got image of like a guy walking around. He's got this big jacket, and he opens up the jacket and goes, "I've got salmon. Do you want some salmon?" Opens up the other jacket, the other side. I've got more salmon. None of it, well, pun intended. Nothing fishy about this. I've got salmon for sale. It's like, yeah, what would constitute handling a salmon under suspicious circumstances? And I think it's brilliant that the salmon has got its own act.
Yeah, literally dedicated legislation just for the salmon.
Yeah, of 1986. So, well, fairly recent, really.
You know what though? That's funny about this as well is like a police officer might walk up to you because they see you handling some sort of fish suspiciously. They walk up and be like, "Right, that's it. I'm charging you under the Salmon Act," and you'd be like, "No, but it's cod. So what's the offence there?
Yeah.
What can you do? You can't do anything, can you? So what? I'm handling prawns suspiciously, but it's not salmon, is it?"
Actually, yeah. Why hasn't cod is really popular here, hasn't it? Why hasn't that got its own act?
Yeah, this is what I
We'll
mean. I
find
just
out.
feel, and the thing is as well, I feel like it'd be much more suspicious to just walk down the street with a fistful of prawns as opposed to like a full salmon. I don't know.
Let's petition to get the Cod Act of 2022.
The Octopus Act. Yeah,
All
maybe
right,
you
tell
could
you what.
start. Maybe you could start a movement as well, and the protest for it could just be everybody holding every other type of seafood suspiciously.
Yeah, 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 and what does it mean? Handled suspiciously? Does the person have to look suspicious, or does it have to be in a suspicious place? Yeah, maybe we should look this up. If anyone knows, or
It's just a police officer pulling you over. You roll your window down and says, "Have you been handling salmon suspiciously tonight, son?"
well, if you've been arrested on handling salmon under suspicious circumstances, let us know because I'm intrigued to see if this has ever been enacted.
What's that film where there's the guy who's like the wheeler dealer who's got all of the goods out, and then all of a sudden they see the police? Is it the beginning of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? And there's like that
Oh yes, yeah,
slow
yeah,
mo,
yeah, yeah,
like you could just recreate that scene, but it's just fish in a briefcase.
yeah. I've got, it's like Only Fools and Horses over here, sort of Del Boy. Instead of dodgy phones or like answering machines or computers, he's like fish, salmon specifically. I don't know. That tickled me, that one. So what? Let's hand over to you. You do a couples because, like I said, we probably have got similar ones. So you
Right.
you do a couple.
Okay, I've got one that most people in the UK that live in the UK over the age of 18 have probably broken this law. And that is the Licensing Act of 1872 says every person basically it makes it an offence to be drunk in a pub because it declares it to be an offence. Every person found drunk on any highway or other public place, whether a building or not, or any licensed premises. So technically, getting drunk in a pub is a criminal offence.
Which I think is brilliant because it's just is oxymoron the right
Yeah,
term
yeah.
to use for this? Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. It's like anyone caught playing video games in an arcade will
And
be arrested.
and do you know what it was as well? I've seen like a little bit of like an excerpt as well. It says the act was amended by the Licensing Amendment Act of 1988 to extend this prohibition to all public places, including pubs, clubs, and even private homes if alcohol is being sold there. So technically, if you've got a bar in your house and you decide to sell a mate a pint, if they get drunk, that's an offence for both the person getting drunk and you.
So is that selling? So you could obviously you could give a drink, but you could
Oh
you
yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
sell it.
Potentially you could give a drink, but you couldn't sell it. So as long as you're not selling booze in your house, it's perfectly legal to get drunk there.
So what do you need then? A breathalyzer, and then give it to them. It's like, no, they're over. No, tell you what, this one's on the house.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
set up a
Imagine.
tab.
Do you know what? Right, I reckon that what the police in the UK should do is, if they wanted to increase revenue, the government should just send coppers into every pub on a Friday night. Right, that's a
Yeah.
fixed penalty notice, £60. Fixed penalty notice, £60.
I mean, I assume this one was probably set up for people taking it too far, isn't it? Potentially about, not necessarily being drunk, but if you got rowdy, I'm wondering if it was.
Yeah, I feel like the intentions, and obviously, again, when you look at like the original act, the only thing that's surprising is obviously that 1988 amendment essentially extended it to all public places. So I think that it did come from a good place in the context of, oh well, we're trying to make sure that people aren't like loud and like antisocial in the streets and that sort of thing. But it is just a little bit strange, I guess. But again, could you imagine if either like the government of the UK just decided to start enforcing that like strictly?
But that's the thing. I'll be honest. I didn't know, and I hadn't found the bit about the 1988 extension. But it is, if you think about it, it's illegal to be drunk or to serve someone who is drunk in a pub. It's just because most people will have a couple of pints. They're probably drunk then, but or technically they might not feel drunk, but they're probably over the limit, right?
Yeah.
And how many people do you see there probably down in 6, 7 pints in a night? I just can't imagine this has ever been enforced. I don't know how you would, because yeah, technically a policeman could go into a pub and find 80% of them drunk, right? But as long as they're not then buying a drink in front of them, could you say, I can't remember now, is it that you can't be drunk or you can't serve a drunk person, or is
I
it
don't
both?
think you can serve somebody who's like so absurdly drunk that you can kind of tell if that
Right.
makes sense. So I think you can't serve them. I think though, I don't know if this is true, but I think it's an offence to be like basically piss drunk in public, because I know that like police officers will clamp down on it in places like university towns and that sort of thing. So I don't know whether or not this is actually the legislation that they use in force to arrest you for being like drunk and disorderly in the street, because I think that that's
Okay.
like a public order offence, but I don't know what legislation that like is covered by, if that makes sense. Because you can get arrested for being drunk in the street if you're like being an issue. Policemen technically have the
Yeah,
power to
yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know if this is the legislation they use for that. Although I couldn't imagine that they're walking up to you saying, "Hi, I'm arresting you under the Licensing Act of 1872."
Yeah, because that's it. And I saw that that's kind of when it started. And yeah, it said, I think you may have said it. Yeah, every person found drunk on any licensed premises shall be liable to a penalty, and that currently stands at £200.
Oh, really? That's yeah.
I saw it, mind you, to be fair, in London, that's probably like 3 pints. It's a cost of 3 pints in London or your bigger towns. That fine is probably just the cost of a couple of rounds. Like I said, I can't imagine. Again, I'm not. Well, mind you, having said that, I don't think a lot of these laws I've ever known anyone to have fallen foul on them. Yeah, I wonder if there are any stats on this, but that's probably something we should have done. Have a quick look.
Yeah. I feel like we were just going to do a quick run through of like either stupid ones or ones that are potentially like ambiguous, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I've got some of those as well. Anyway, definitely.
Well, I've got another one. So this is the Seamen and Soldiers, Seamen and Soldiers, sorry, the Seamen's and
Yeah,
Soldiers False
how
Characters
childish.
Act and Police Act 1996. So this is basically where it's an offence to dress up as a police officer or a member of the armed forces. Now, I find this a weird one because how good does the dress up need to be for it to be an offence? So, for instance, you see people at Halloween dressed up as like army
Yeah,
soldiers
yeah,
or as
yeah.
police officers potentially. So, would you get arrested for putting on what is evidently like a Halloween style costume, or would you have to go full out with like handcuffs and a radio with the fluorescent jackets and the proper hat? I wonder what extent you'd need to be arrested for impersonating a police officer or member of the armed forces.
Yeah, because you can buy those, like as a kid, I'm sure I had one. You could buy the police helmets. Now, obviously, a 6-year-old kid isn't going to be impersonating a police officer. I know the joke was that the police are getting younger every year, but I don't think they're that young yet. But yeah, you raise a good point. What level of professionalism or realism? Yeah, is there like I said, if you've stuck one of those old hats on, and yeah, you've got like a little bit of a blue suit with chevrons on, is that like quite obviously a fake?
Yeah,
You're not going to mix that up. But is that going to get you in trouble?
because the thing is, as well, when you look at the wording, it's basically in place to stop people from impersonating a police officer or army, like a soldier
Yeah,
or a member of the armed forces. But for me, impersonating kind of is indicative of like taking an action that would make someone believe that you're a police officer. However, in any case, that still can't be the limit of like what the threshold is, because just walking down the street in a really, really good dress up as a for copper is going to be impersonating, because people will change their behavior around you thinking that you are a police officer. So where
yeah,
it says
yeah,
impersonating, I feel like it doesn't even need to be an action. It just needs to be a really good costume and you walking down the street, really good uniform and
yeah,
you walking down the
yeah.
street.
Well, it's a good point because impersonating a policeman to me would be that you are pretending to be one.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were dressing up and going to a party, you're not pretending to be a policeman, you're dressing up as a policeman. Do you see what I mean? It's different to then going in the street and like trying to arrest someone or stopping and searching someone. That would be impersonating a policeman, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So do you think then that this is where the threshold is? So you dress up as a policeman in a really, really good uniform, looks bang on. You're walking to your fancy dress party, but the moment that you break the law is when you see someone and you say, "Oi, come here."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I think that's probably how it's supposed to be interpreted.
Look, I get it, right, and I get why. I get why, but I guess it does open up because imagine if you were walking to said party as dressed up as in a police uniform, and you did see a crime happening, and say it was like a robbery of a shop, and the shop owner was asking for help, and you just walked on because you didn't want to do anything. One, because you're frightened. Two, you don't want to impersonate a police officer. How terrible must that be? One for the shop owner, and two, the headlines, policeman walks off
I
because
love how,
are
I
you
love
then
how
going
we're looking at this as like a perfectly plausible situation for every
to,
Saturday.
yeah, well, because you're not then going to come forward and said, yeah, that was me dressed up as a policeman. And so the story's going to be police officer walks off after spotting mugging or robbery.
Or you turn up, you've turned around and said, "Stop, in the name of the law, I'm arresting you for burgling this man." You hold them there, and then when the police turn up, they arrest you and the burglar.
Days, and yeah, you've literally read my mind because what if you did stop a crime? So you could do it if you weren't dressed up as a police officer.
Yeah.
So you could intervene and perform because you could do a citizen's arrest, right? But if you were then dressed up as a police officer, would you then be in trouble? Well, I guess you would. So, and would you get a more severe sentence because you're impersonating the police?
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. I would love to see, you know what? Oh, we should go and look at some examples of whether or not this has ever gone to court before.
I should really retract that statement at the start. We should become the podcast renowned for our in-depth research on stuff we talk about. Um,
Look. We're here just to give you what to look at. You're there to go and research.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we're here for your inspiration. You do
yeah,
the work. Um,
yeah.
the other thing that I've thought about, and this is a very stupid statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, what about actors then? Because they are then impersonating officers. So I know they're not doing it in the public. So
Yeah,
they
this
should
is
they
true.
not,
This is
in
true.
theory? So do they get special dispensation? And how do you get that?
Hold up, I'm ringing 999 to report line of duty.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I've seen someone
yeah.
impersonating a police officer on my TV. They're like, "No, that's not what the law's for." I'm like, "But that's what the wording says."
Well, have you seen Oh, what is it? Is it London Has Fallen?
Yeah, yeah.
I think they are. Well, I wanted. They were definitely impersonating the British police because they were like real awful police in that one, weren't they? You needed Gerard Butler to basically take down. Those police were like didn't know what they were doing, so they were obviously civilians dressed as police impersonating the police in that film. Um, yeah, I saw that. And did you say it was also any armed forces? Did you say?
Yeah, armed forces, which is a little bit of a strange one for me because in public life, I don't think members of the armed forces have any kind of like power of arrest or anything over people, do they? So I don't know if the armed forces one is to protect because obviously, like, if members of the armed forces get like discounts and things like that at like
Well, I was
stores
just
or
God, you read my mind. This is scary because I was going to say the same thing about nurses because we know the NHS here often get discount in certain places, don't they?
yeah.
It was happening during COVID, but I was wondering, does it apply to that? Or even if the law doesn't specifically state that, are you committing fraud because you are then defrauding a shop of
Yeah.
money?
Yeah. I
You
think that's
probably
probably what
get
it'd
nabbed
fall
on that.
under. Yeah.
I like how we're trying to find ways around this law.
We got our dress up for our next fancy dress party.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, like I said, this one I get. It's just a funny one because most people would want to dress up as one of them as either like a prank to a mate or at a fancy dress party, but technically that is illegal.
Yeah. And the thing is, as
And
well, obviously, like I went to university in Nottingham, and there's a university in Nottingham whose nickname is obviously the Trent Army. So I feel like every year the police could just issue fixed penalty notices to 30,000 students when they all dress up for their first night at university.
There you go. Easy pickings there.
Yeah,
Easy
yeah. So if you
pickings.
are Nottinghamshire Constabulary, you can credit me for that. I'll take a 4% cut of all the fines that you hand out. I'll even come
And
and help if need be.
while you're there, go to the bars because
Yeah,
you'll also pick up people that
yeah,
are
yeah. This
drunk
is the
in
thing. I'll
the
be like, right, we're going to have fixed penalty notices for people drunk in the bars and clubs, and then fixed penalty notices as they walk out for impersonating members of the armed forces.
Oh my word! The numbers are going to go up there. Well, I was going to say commission. I'm sure they don't earn commission on arrest, but you know what I mean.
I've got another like stupidly British one, if you like.
Go for it. Go for it.
So this is about shaking rugs in the street. I imagine you might
I've
have
not
had
got
this.
that one.
Oh,
No,
you've not
no,
got
I've not got
this.
that one. No, no,
Okay,
no, no.
so this is Section 60 of the Metropolitan Police Act of 1839, and it says that it's illegal for anybody to beat or shake any carpets, rugs, or mats prior to 8 a.m. unless they are doormats. So a mat from the kitchen, no, illegal. Doormat, fine.
Before 8 a.m.
Before 8 a.m. So after 8 a.m., you can shake everything, but the only little bit of ambiguity in this is prior to 8 a.m., but at what point does that prior to 8 a.m. start? Does it start at 12 p.m. at night? Does it
Yeah,
start at 3
yeah.
o'clock in the morning? So, like, if I shake
You,
it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, can I turn
yeah,
around and get a fine because the police officer says, but it's prior to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning?
yeah. You think like me, like that. That's the sort of thing that keeps me up at night. You see, and that's the sort of thing that really fascinates me because why a doormat? I guess because is it already outside?
Yeah, I guess so. But in and of itself, like, would it? I still don't understand because I guess this was probably a public nuisance thing. They didn't want people either
Noise.
being
It's a
woken up.
noise.
Yeah, it was a noise thing.
Yeah.
So I think it was probably to prevent that. But in and of itself, a doormat's not number one dirtier and also thicker and louder.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're doing. It do you beat it as in so like when I've got like the mats in the car, the foot mats in the car,
Yeah,
you kind of hit it on the ground a little bit, don't you, to kind of get everything or against your wall or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that makes a noise. But what if I was just outside silently shaking a
Oh
rug or a
no,
mat
because it says illegal to beat or shake.
or shake? But why shake?
Yeah, I know, but I don't understand it because you only get the noise, surely.
Yeah. How's it go? Sorry if everyone thought somebody was shaking a rug outside
Yeah,
in their
yeah,
house
apologies.
then. Yeah,
But
yeah.
guess what? Guess what? It's not prior to 8 a.m., but it is prior to
Well,
8 a.m. tomorrow
yeah.
morning.
Well, if you're listening to this before 8 a.m., sorry if you get called by the police. Yeah, that is a really weird one. I don't get the stipulation about the doormat. Yes, it's already outside, so you're not taking it outside, but that's got to be the doormat's got to be the worst mat to shake or beat,
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
it?
It's almost like what's the worst packet of crisps you could decide to open and eat in the cinema, or like what's the worst food that you could eat in the cinema? And it's like the cinema saying all foods are too noisy apart from nachos.
Yeah, yeah. That is one. It feels like it was started because of a complaint in an or a number of complaints, but it's like then all of a sudden they said, "Ah, but we've got to allow doormats because doormats get absolutely filthy, and maybe that constitutes a hazard because if somebody slips on a dirty floor mat or something, or do you know what I mean? There's some weird thing that's happened, some case, and they said, "Yeah, no, we'll allow doormats." And what year did you say that came in?
So that was in doormats was in 1839, but I think technically never repealed.
Well, maybe we should.
I actually think that that's one that Uber Butler did in a video where he turned around and tried to break British laws, and he just stood outside Buckingham Palace shaking a doormat at like 7:45, and then the police were walking up to him like, "What are you doing?" And he was just like, "I'm just shaking a doormat." And they're like, "But is this like a political thing or something?"
Yeah, what are you gonna do about it? I'm shaking my little mat that I keep in my car. It stresses me out. I just don't think I can clean a rug anymore outside. Just to be just to be safe.
Or it's all going to have to be beaten at 8:01.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, isn't that worse? Because then everyone doing it all at the same time. And then you're
Yeah,
always out
yeah.
there.
You
Imagine the
just have like a
noise.
field of dust and yeah, and except 10 times worse.
And what about if the clocks go forward and you forget? That's the
Yeah,
right way.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If
yeah.
the clocks go forward, and no, which way around would it be if the clocks go back? No, if the clocks go back and you haven't changed it, isn't it? Yeah, because you've woken up thinking it's 8 o'clock. You go out, shake your rug, but it's actually 7 a.m.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then all of a sudden you've got the police at your door ready to throw you in a cell.
So basically, what we're saying is don't clean rugs or mats.
Yeah, don't clean rugs or mats. What you have to
Better
do
to
is
be
you have to
safe.
throw them away and buy new ones. That's what you have to do if you
This is
live in London.
this is almost like Gremlins, isn't it? Don't feed them after midnight. Yeah, it's like someone said. It's midnight somewhere around the world. Isn't it? So give us another one. Give us another one.
Okay, this again, this one's very strange, but evidently comes from a different time. Metropolitan Streets Act of 1867, and it's illegal to drive any cattle through the streets during the specific hours of 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. unless somebody has had specific permission from the police commissioner. So basically, you cannot take your cow for a walk in the street between the hours of 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. But after 7 p.m., perfectly fine. You can walk your cow.
So you can after 7 p.m. you can walk cattle in the street.
Yeah, and then the law actually goes on to say any person in contravention of this section shall be liable to a penalty not exceeding 10 shillings for each head of cattle so driven or conducted. So 10 cattle, that's 100 shillings potentially as a fine. I'll tell you what, let me see what that would be in real world money today. And you can have a ramble about this law.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking now. It's like we keep saying, oh, truck drivers should be, lorries should only people saying to stop traffic during the day. Trucks should be out on the, between like 10 p.m. and like 10 a.m. Is that what we're saying as well? Because cows were so plentiful, everyone had cows and cattle, and
Yeah,
we
I
say, right,
imagine
you can only
so.
walk them. You
But
know,
then did they not clog the streets up after 7 p.m.?
I was thinking how many people had cattle though. It all depends on how many people had the cattle.
I
Uh,
found out. So 10 shillings is about a pound. But I imagine that
Oh,
that's
really?
like
Okay.
not adjusted for proper inflation, if that makes sense.
It's probably
Um,
like
yeah, it's probably like
100 quid.
160 quid. So you're actually getting like a £16,000 fine for taking your.
It's probably
What
a
do you?
Bitcoin. It's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
a
yeah,
Bitcoin
yeah,
now, isn't
yeah.
it?
And the thing is,
we,
as
we,
well, why does that not extend to other barnyard animals? Why is that not pigs? Why is that not? I mean, people walk horses still, don't they?
yeah, well, I know years ago in the town we lived in, somebody would walk a goat. They walked a goat, and it was brilliant. So yeah, what's the difference? I mean, I'm guessing cows do bigger messes than goats, and probably a bit more dangerous if they hit you. But now it's all starting to make sense if you piece it together. So maybe that's why you can't uh, maybe beat the rugs outside after a certain time because you might attract the attention of cattle who might go for you. So that's why they're now saying the story is starting to unfold. We're doing it. We're doing it.
But yeah,
And
go on. Sorry.
1800s, no, 1800s again, yeah.
Yeah, that was again the 1800s.
They were strict then, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Like, there was, but the thing is, as well, they were strict, but also they made a law for everything that was so specific. It's almost like members of parliament literally turned around and said, "Those cattle are really clogging up the streets at this time when it's rush hour and everybody's on horse and cart. How about we just ban them from doing it?" And then
Yeah,
every act was made to like fit a very specific set of circumstances that somebody had just experienced.
but it makes you think. It does make you think. Then, like I said, how many cattle must have been had, and how many people would be walking them through the street, and why would you be walking them through the streets? I mean, is it like you're taking it for a walk like a dog? I don't know. I mean, or is it like you're just trying to get it to the market or something?
Do you know what's mental about this though is the fact that like people in the UK in like the 80s actually did have like lions and tigers and stuff as like pets,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they were like walking them in the road, but cows apparently no, can't do cows, can't do cows.
Yeah, you've got, you hear the stories of like wildcats here, big cats roaming the streets and stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
no, it's fine, it's a hoax. But yeah, no, you can't have that cow, sir. Yeah. So what, I'm gonna reel off a couple at you.
Okay.
One is a very quick one, and I'm gonna do that first because I'm sure we've all been in this situation. But apparently in Scotland, you must let anyone use your toilet if they ask you.
Yeah, I've heard this. And can
Yeah.
I just say, as somebody with bowel disease, how amazingly helpful would that be?
I wasn't going to say anything because I know you've mentioned it before, but yeah, if you need the toilet, you can knock on someone's door in Scotland and ask to use their bathroom, and by law, they cannot deny you. I mean, you would then never worry about having to go out, would you?
Yeah. To be fair, I'd just knock on a door and I'd be like, I need to use your toilet. And then somebody would be like, but you can't just come into my. I'd be like, but legally you have to.
And that is the thing. And again, I'm wondering why that would be a law. I mean, it's probably come from being helpful, almost like a good Samaritan to people. Yeah, could you imagine that now? Someone knocking on your door, say, "Can I use your loo?" Yeah,
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 you.
come in. Go,
I
yeah,
I bet you 100% of burglaries in Scotland happen when the person's in.
yeah,
It's just a bloke walking up to your house in a balaclava. He's like, "I need to use your loo," and you're like, "Are you sure?" And it's like, "Yeah, honest, dead serious." Wait.
Oh my
Go
God,
on
that's brilliant.
then.
Yeah, yeah. How many cases started with? Well, they asked to use the toilet. Because even here, like shops even get a bit sniffy sometimes, don't they? If you ask them to, they won't let you use the losing shop. So in your own house, I just find that amazing.
But I don't know if the one in shops is more like of a liability thing because I think they don't want
Yeah,
you like walking around the
it
back
is.
and like
Yeah.
falling over. But it is true. I've had trouble sometimes in shops and stuff like that, which has obviously been like very awkward situations. I'm like, you don't understand the circumstances. Wish I was Scottish.
Or in Scotland.
Yeah, or in
I mean, I
Scotland.
get. Yeah, no, actually, I get that, and I think there probably is some truth to that. But then, what if you got hurt? And I don't know the situation where you would do, but what if you got hurt in someone's house? Say they had a rake lying in the hallway,
With
right?
some marbles at the
Yeah,
top of the
yeah,
stairs.
yeah. Yeah, say you walk into the McAllister household,
I
right? And
was
you need to
just, oh my God, I was just about to say you walk into the Home Alone
yeah.
house.
And like a tin of paint comes swings down as you open the toilet door. Are you then liable? Again, I just thought that was not a funny one if you need it, but I found that a really odd one. And all I saw was that it was in Scotland. The one I thought you were going to mention when you mentioned the Metropolitan Police Act was I've got I've got Section 54 of the
Yeah, I've seen this.
Metropolitan Police Act specifies you are not allowed to carry a plank along a pavement in London unless unloading a vehicle.
But like again, it's like how far can you walk with it before it's not considered to be unloading?
Yeah. It also, though, hold on, the ban extends to hoops, wheels, ladders, placards, and poles too. But it is only enforced within the Metropolitan Police District, excluding the City of London. But yeah, so what if you had to go to B&Q to finish off a little job in your garden, and you bought a plank, and you're walking it home or to the shop? You can't do that.
No, it gets confiscated, and then you're out of a plank, and you've got a fine
Yeah. So could you say technically you're unloading it from the store you bought it from?
to the
It's just it's
house.
a long walk. Yeah, it's a long
Yeah.
walk. I mean, to be honest, I don't know how big that area is actually, what the Metropolitan Police District is, because it says it excludes City of London. I just found it funny.
As a workman as well, like what if you've just had to park the van down the road because there's double yellows everywhere? Like all of a
Yeah,
sudden you're like, oh well, I've got to walk it 100 meters. They're like, no, that's not unloading. That's carrying it to the van.
yeah, that's transporting. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, you're 2 feet over the allowed limit. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know what I think as well is funny about this one is this must have been brought in as a result of like an endangerment to the public type thing. So I just want to know back what year did you say it was? 1839 or something.
No, no, I didn't get a year actually. I just saw it says Section 54, the Metropolitan Police Act. Actually, have I got it written down
Oh yeah,
somewhere
no,
else?
I've got it 1839. So I just want to know prior to 1839 how many people were getting smacked in the head by dudes walking down the street with planks. Because that must have been what it was brought in to stop, surely. Like, there's a guy, so he gets called, and then he turns, and he just wallops like 3 pedestrians.
It was all a Charlie Chaplin film back then.
Yeah,
If we ever do, if we had a time machine, what year would we go to? It might be never to choose the 1800s.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
boring, man. That was
yeah.
boring.
And as well, you had like it was I don't know like diseases and stuff are worse as well. On top of the fact that you get fined for everything, you probably get fined for having smallpox back then as well for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm not worried about the diseases, but you're telling me I can't carry a plank down the street in the Metropolitan Police District? Deal breaker. Deal breaker.
Well, in actual fact, the only reason I spoke about diseases then is because I had one which was actually about plague or smallpox.
All right. Okay. Okay.
And the Public Health
Fairly
Act,
topical. Fairly
yeah,
topical.
fairly
Yeah.
topical. The Public Health Act of 1936 states that it's a legal responsibility for cab drivers to ask their passengers if they have plague or smallpox.
Yeah, that feels very specific, doesn't it? Like most people probably wouldn't ask that. You say, right, get in a taxi. Where you going?
Yeah, that's the thing, because I feel like now, if we were to apply it to modern day, really it's not untoward, because like we were getting asked for COVID passes to go into places. So I guess at a
Yeah.
time in 1930, I don't know if obviously plague wasn't around properly in 1936. I don't think. Were there cases of plague in 1936? I don't know.
Remember, I
I don't
think
think
it
so. Smallpox would have been
feels.
about properly in that period, but I guess it's
Yeah.
kind of just the equivalent of that, really. So that one doesn't seem. I feel like 3 years ago this one would have seemed ridiculous, but now it's almost pretty
Yeah.
reasonable.
And so it was illegal to ask if they've had it, right? Not it's
No, no,
illegal
no.
to
So
get in the
it
cab.
was a legal responsibility for the cab drivers just to ask their passengers if they had plague or smallpox.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because why a taxi driver?
Well, I don't know. Is it cross contamination? Do you think
Yeah,
potentially?
but so you could go into a shop.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. That's actually
Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't.
To be fair, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the law. Yeah, because when I saw it, it didn't say like it was illegal to go into a shop, a cinema, a concert, a huge gathering. It's just poor taxi drivers.
And that's the thing. I feel like again, it's just a very specific circumstance. So I feel like there would have been a case of smallpox which spread to a taxi driver, and then all of a sudden Parliament said that's a really specific case that we need to write a law for.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of these feel like they were very specific in nature, which is probably why nobody remembers them now, or we don't follow them. But the fact that some of these are saying they still do exist feels weird to me. Like, shouldn't we then disband this? I don't know how the law works, but it feels like if something is still enshrined, or is there like a caveat? Is it like a law only lasts 100 years unless?
Yeah, I feel like technically it's all still in force, like officially, but I guess it's like practically whether or not laws are enforced. So I think it's a case of stuff from like the 1800s in reality is so outdated. There's just an assumption that it won't be enforced because it's so outdated. But that doesn't stop
Yeah,
technically someone arresting you, like a police officer turning around and finding you for something. It's like we talked about the doormat one. Like, let's say that you actually did shake a doormat outside and the police officer walked up and said, well, that's actually illegal to do that. You shouldn't be doing it. Like, I'm either
could you
cautioning you
imagine?
or arresting you. Like,
I think if I was to be a policeman now, I think I'd want to swat up on all these laws because people must be breaking them all the time. And can you imagine that you'd be that person? You gain fame because you were the person that arrested someone walking a cow at 5 to 7.
but do you know what it is as well? Like, sometimes, that situation actually wouldn't be bad because it would make Parliament change the law. So I remember, there was a particular case. I think the case was called Fisher v Bell, and it was illegal to sell flick knives. I believe. I think that was what the law was because it was like an offensive weapon. So
Yeah.
they were advertised in a shop, and the shop owner was arrested because he had them advertised. But the judge found him not guilty because the wording of the legislation and the word offer meant that there needed to be an offer of a sum of money. And because he'd not been offered any money for the
Okay. Yeah.
exchange of
Yeah.
the flick knife, he legally didn't have it as an offer to sale, which means that he couldn't have been convicted under that act. And then Parliament came in and
Right.
changed the act. So
Right.
sometimes
Right.
you need like a really obnoxious like rule break to basically turn around and say, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to deal with this practically. So someone does something about it. Similarly, I can't remember what the name of the case was, but it was to do with voting. So I remember it was a case where the a person had basically impersonated someone and basically used their name to vote, but the person that they used was dead. And I think the law was that it's an offence to impersonate like somebody for the purposes of voting. But with the way
Mm.
that the law was written, a person that was dead couldn't be impersonated, and so as a result, he couldn't be found guilty of stealing their identity and voting
Right.
because they were
Okay.
dead, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah. Yeah.
Parliament comes in and then changes the law. So sometimes it's not a bad thing for these things to be taken really like practically because it just highlights like how like stupid
Where
or
it
like
needs
loopholes.
tightening up.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
basically.
it needs tightening up. Well, I've got just two more that are linked to the UK, and then the rest are kind of around the world. Have you got many more UK ones?
I've got one more UK one, but I feel like this might actually be something that applies to the rest of the world. But I know it's obviously specifically in the UK. Although I don't know if this has expired yet. So this is technically that it's illegal to sing "Happy Birthday" as part of a public performance, and that's because the song "Happy Birthday" is copyrighted.
It's weird that one because I am not sure if it's now. I thought it was public domain now, but
Yeah,
I
I
know
think
it
it's
was
public domain.
technically, yeah, but it was weird. It was technically, I think it was, but basically everyone around the world sings it, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I think as well that's why do you ever have you ever been to TGI Friday? You ever been in TGI Fridays when it's someone's birthday and they sing like a happy birthday song but it's not happy birthday to you?
Oh, really?
And
What?
I think that's because the song was copyrighted and they couldn't sing it to that tune.
Oh, okay,
So the
okay.
staff in the store made their own one up and that was what was used across all TGI Fridays restaurants, which is brilliant to be fair.
Brilliant,
You just know
brilliant,
that the
brilliant.
lawyers have come along with like a huge stack of paperwork and be like, you need to change what your staff sing to customers now.
I love the fact that you can sing the song, just slightly change the tune, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, I'll quick fire mine because some of the, we'll get to around the world. I've got one linked to kind of two that you've brought up actually in a way. Leading a cow while drunk has been illegal in the UK since 1872.
I did see that
Um,
one.
yeah, the licensing act of guess what kind of century it came in?
Oh, from the 19th century.
Well, yeah, 1872.
Yep,
Hope to
yep.
curtail the drinking misdemeanors plaguing Britain. One part made it illegal to be drunk while in charge on any highway or other public place of carriage. A horse, cattle, sorry. It seems quaint now, but it made a hell of a lot of sense back then. Cattle drovers moved large herds of massive, potentially dangerous cows many miles to market. The last thing anyone need was a drunken idiot trying to lead their cows through a town. Um, Although cows these days travel long distances by lorry, it's still illegal to drink and drove. I like that, drink and drove.
I love the fact because you could kill two birds with one stone by being drunk and walking them through the streets between the
Well,
hours of
yeah.
10 and 7
Oh god, that's a field day there. And where was
whilst
the other
carrying a
one?
plank of wood.
I've got two more. Sorry. In the 16th century, all non-noble Englishmen over the age of 6 had to wear a flat cap on a Sunday. This was in 1571. A law was passed forcing all non-nobles to wear a wool cap on Sundays and holidays. Lawbreakers faced a 3 farthing fine. This law was absurd even in its day. Parliament repealed it in 1597. However, after 26 years, people had grown rather fond of wearing woolen hats, and thus the law gave birth to the flat cap. And the last one I had here, this was one of those weird ones, the weird ones you hear. So it was in the early 15th century, the city of Chester banned Welshmen from being there at night under the pain of decapitation. Uh, Between 1400 and 1415, Wales got sick of being bullied and exploited by its noisy neighbour, England, and rebelled. Led by, I'm not going to pronounce the name, the Welsh were ultimately unsuccessful after a series of bloody battles for independence. And in 1403, the Earl of Chester was so worried he passed a notorious anti Welsh law. He banished all Welsh sympathisers from Chester, a city near the Welsh border. Worse still, he banned all Welshmen from Chester between sundown and sunrise on pain of decapitation. There is no evidence the city ever repealed the law. So yeah. So yeah, okay. So we've done the UK. Let's start going around the world. Let's bring the other countries into this.
Okay, so I've got France, and this is a very specific place in France.
Okay.
Ring a bell? No?
No.
Okay. Specifically in a place, and apologies if I butcher the pronunciation, but I will try my best. In Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Actually, no, I think I have seen that somewhere, but go on, carry on.
Okay, so this originated in 1954 after a local saw a deep sea sorry, after a local saw deep sea divers coming from a cigar-shaped spaceship. The mayor made a decree and stated that any aircraft known as flying saucer or flying cigar which should land on the territory of the community will be immediately held in custody. So basically he was just like, ET, don't come here.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It was basically made it illegal to land a flying saucer in the town, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he basically
Yeah.
alienated aliens.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant. I mean, how many were flying around then? It's like-
Yeah, this is the thing. I kind of like had scenes from like some sort of like Mass Effect like landing station or something. I feel like that's what it was. I wonder if at any point that decree was ever put into place and they did confiscate what they thought was a cigar-shaped flying saucer type thing.
Do you think the aliens? Do you think the aliens ever said to each other, "Oh, you go in front there, no, don't go near Shatner." It's yeah. But also, they make really nice wine there. So were they drunk when they made this law? They thought they saw flying saucers or
Yeah,
UFO shape.
they
Yeah,
they were just like utterly hammered, and in actual fact, it was just a traffic light going from red to green, and they thought it was like a UFO.
yeah. I saw. Yeah, criminalized the flying over, landing, and taking off of flying saucers. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? The bit I had added was the mayor's son dismissed the law as a publicity stunt, but the town refused to overturn the ban in 2016. So it's still standing.
Amazing, amazing.
I mean, that's the thing. So now we don't. Well, it's a whole debate: are there or aren't there aliens, right? And are there UFOs or not? But to have that means there are, and it feels like a weird one now because we don't. It's not like they happen all the time. Do you know what I mean? So what did you say? You said that it come from like a submarine or something. Did you say
Yeah,
or
so apparently the way that the law is presented is that a local saw deep sea divers coming from a cigar-shaped spaceship.
oh, a spaceship? Sorry. Oh, I thought you. Yes, maybe they had a bit of wine.
Yeah, I feel like in that instance, the person, and the fact is as well, the fact that this law was just provoked by one person's testimony, and all of a sudden aliens were banned. It's like,
Yeah. It's like I've seen a flying saucer. Okay, right, we're banning any flying saucers from this town. That'll do it. That'll learn them. Yeah.
I do
Oh.
actually have one which is a strange ban, but I actually kind of half agree with it.
Well, where is that? Because I've got one in France.
Okay, I tell you what, we'll
So
stick with the France one.
yeah, let's do that. So I've got, and again, in this one, right, there was a specific website I got this from. Can't remember now. Is it historycollection.com? But in this one, I saw they've used the wrong word, which does make me worry that the rest of them aren't probably real. But I don't care. Like I said at the start, the caveat is I believe they're real, and I want to believe they're real because that makes them funny. But they used the wrong word here. They've just used the wrong word. So in France, since the 19th century, it's been legal to marry a dead person.
Well, that, yeah.
But hold on, it sounds bad. They said it's not anywhere near as bad as it sounds, right? So basically, since the 19th century, marrying a corpse, and yeah, here they've said this is where I said they've used the wrong word. They said necromancy, but I think that's magic, isn't it? I think it's called posthumous marriage. I still can't say it. It's been legal in France, and what it does is basically it dates back to when being born out of wedlock was seen as a social taboo. So if your husband died in battle before you could get married and you were pregnant, they allowed this posthumous marriage to make your children legitimate.
Oh, right, okay.
And the dead's consent is established by family members or an existing arrangement. The law took its specific current form in 1959 after a dam burst, killing 423 people. And as recently as 2017, somebody has married his partner posthumously for that reason. So it's a weird one. When you see it like that, you're thinking, wow, but this actually is probably one of the ones that actually makes sense. Of all the ones we said so far, doesn't it? It probably makes sense in a modern setting.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Yeah, that one's probably one of the least ridiculous ones that we've seen. To be fair.
But I don't know what I do find. I don't know if it's allowed anywhere else around the world, though. That's the thing because it does say in France, so it's an odd one there.
Yeah, maybe it is just a very French thing.
Again, it's like that had the wow factor when I read it, but I kept it in because it is an interesting state. I mean, it's still a weird law in the sense of marrying a dead person, but absolutely the reason for it is yeah, it's spot on, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The
Um,
reason is kind of like built from a good place, obviously, but the
yeah.
law in and of itself, when you hear it like that as a tagline, sounds ridiculous.
Well, where in the world are you going now?
Well, I was going to go to Singapore for something that I agreed with. So this is chewing gum being banned in Singapore, and it still is banned in Singapore, and that's because Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew thought it would lead to mischief making and like people putting chewing gum like in public places and that sort of thing. Apparently, pieces of chewing gum could get you fines of 1,000, the equivalent of $1,000. In the second offence, $2,000, and the third offence would force you into cleaning the streets whilst wearing a sign that says "You are a litterer." And I kind of get this one because it's about keeping streets clean. Because how many times do you walk down a high
Yeah.
street and see like gum stuck to the floor or stuck to like benches
Lampposts,
and
boards.
yeah, all
Yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
things. And in reality, I'm kind of sympathetic of this one, to be fair.
And do you know what? The thing is, this was quite a few years ago, went to Malaysia and Singapore, and as you cross the border, yeah, we were warned, do not bring, if you check your luggage, do not bring chewing gum. If you've got chewing gum, just get rid of it now. And I remember the stress people go through to make sure that they'd got rid of their chewing gum. But yeah, it is definitely one that I've kind of seen. And like you said, I kind of agree with it because you see it on the pavement here, and when it gets then trod in, it just becomes these horrible marks. You get those splodges, those circles over the pavements and stuff like that, because it just gets worn in then, and
Yeah,
it does make the place look untidy. So yeah, I kind of agree with that.
but yeah, I think that that would be one that would probably do a lot of places a world of good, to be fair, and I can understand why it came about.
Have you seen over here, well, when I say over here in England at least, they've started for a while. They've done it with cigarettes as well for the cigarette butts, but they put on like lampposts. They did like a question, who do you think is better, A or B, and stick your gum here. So instead of chucking it on the floor, they encourage you to stick it on the board under the
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
you give. And so then they just ripped that paper down or whatever, chucked it, and then put a new one up.
Yeah, because I've seen that with like cigarette butts where they'll do like a poll and it will give you a
Yeah.
question and you put your cigarette butt into the poll, like answer that you want to give, basically.
Which I think is brilliant because you're saying, right, we need to stop this. So rather than them chucking it on the floor, let's give them somewhere antisocial to stick it, but under a formal, like an approved way of sticking it on a lamppost or something, or
Yeah,
in
yeah.
public.
It needs to be disposed of in an official gum dispenser.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have any Singapore, but I've got two in Italy.
Okay, yeah, I think I immediately know where you're going to go with one of them in Italy. So go on.
Okay, have you got one or in Italy or?
Yeah, I've got one, and I think it was from Milan.
Okay, so I'll do the other one then. All right, because I think so. I've got one from Turin in
Yeah,
Italy. So it's illegal to not walk your dog at least 3 times a day in Turin. And again, I kind of like this one.
yeah, I agree because in reality, it's actually promoting something that's really good and things that you should be doing anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So dog owners in Turin, Italy will be fined up to €500 if they don't walk their pets at least 3 times a day under a new law from the council. Italy considers itself an animal-loving nation. In many cities, stray cats are protected by law. And to enforce the law, Turin police would rely on the help of tipsters spotting cruel treatment by neighbours. Turin has the most stringent animal protection rules in the country. They even ban fairgrounds from giving away goldfish and bags, which I can't believe still happens as well.
Well, funnily enough, leading on to that one, I can't remember if it's nationwide in Italy, but I know that it's definitely in some place illegal to keep a lone goldfish by itself in a bowl in Italy, and the only exemption to the rule is if there's more than one.
Yeah, there's also a similar one in Switzerland, I think, with guinea pigs, because
Yeah.
apparently guinea pigs are very social creatures. So you have to have at least two guinea pigs in Switzerland, I think it was. Going back to this one, yeah, I love this one. I mean, I think there should be more things specifically about animals. Why not? Because it also helps you out, right? To make sure you get your 3 walks a day.
Yeah, this is true. So I think it makes people fitter, it stops animal abuse. There's all positives all round. And at the end of the day as well, I mean, in reality, it wouldn't be like to me, like in terms of like dogs, especially, like it's strange that we don't have like countries that are properly like licensing the right to have a dog, if that makes sense, a bit like a
Yeah.
driving license. Because it's true, you don't know if somebody's going to have the ability to turn around and take care of an animal in the way that it should be taken care of.
I mean, I'm sure there are rules, or sorry, rules. I'm sure there are laws about animals, but yeah, it's nice to know that some countries have specific laws about animals. Yeah, let's hear your Milan one.
So this dates back to the Austro-Hungarian times, and it's a law that was kind of never repealed. So I guess it's one of those ones that probably isn't in force anymore. So it's a legal requirement to smile at all times in Milan, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
exemptions. So I was in Milan not very long ago.
I was going to say, and you're the grumpy one here, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's like,
Honestly, I should have been fined about 6,000 euros at that point. Actually, I shouldn't admit that, really, should I? I'm gonna get a
yeah,
letter in the post from the Italian government fining me now.
going to
Um,
search the CCTV.
yeah, the exemptions include. Sorry, it's not funny because it's terrible. It's like
I get what
funeral
you mean.
goers,
Yeah.
hospital workers, or those at the bedside of an ill family member. But you know what's well funny for me is that like as the moment that the funeral ends, you need to smile again.
Yeah, yeah. You walk out the door and you've got a smile.
Or like you're at the bedside of an ill family member, but the moment that they pass on, they're no longer ill, so you need to smile.
The heart is in the right place on this one. We want to promote people being happy and looking happy, but it doesn't quite work. You've just come out of a dreadful, or imagine your team have just been drubbed 6-0 by their bitter rivals. You've got to smile. Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Oh, 8-0, we've been relegated. The team's probably going to fold now. Or, I'm going to have to support like a bitter rival. Yeah, what else? What's wrong with that? Yeah.
Imagine that, all of the Inter Milan fans being forced to smile in Milan when they were watching AC
when,
run and walk
when they,
around with the title.
when they win. Oh, my word. Yeah,
Amazing, amazing.
again, it's one that the heart is in the right place, but in reality, I mean, I wonder at the time if these were really enforced. I mean, they must have done, right? Because that's why you bring a law in, right?
Yeah, I feel like at some point it must have been, or it should have maybe it was like used to like bolster morale amongst like citizens and that sort of thing. Do you reckon it would go down well in London?
Yeah. Well, now I think, isn't it? It's illegal to smile at strangers in London, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's what it is.
or best off avoided.
I'll tell you
Let's have
what,
a
can I
look.
give you one more Italian one then?
Oh yeah, because I don't have one. Go on.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, so there's a place, it's a town near Venice, and I don't want to butcher the pronunciation, but Eraclea,
Okay.
I think. And this is a €250 fine was implemented for building sandcastles at the beach.
Oh, what a spoil sport.
Like utter killjoys. I swear to God, whatever it is, I'm sorry, but whoever the tourist board at Eraclea near Venice, I'm never going to there. No, never going there ever. Never doing it.
What if I built a sand house or a sand car?
Yeah, exactly. A sand car. What are they going to do then? Yeah, 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 off you go.
Yeah, there must be a reason. They want it maybe to the beach. They want it to look as pristine and nice as possible. But yeah, it does feel a bit humbug, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't like it. Can't get on board with that one. Not like the gun one.
Yeah. I've got a couple more European ones. I've got an Austrian one and a Swedish one. Have you got any others from Europe?
I don't think Europe. I've got a couple from outside of, which are pretty
Sorry,
relatively
not Austria. I can't read it. It's Australia. All right, let's do the other one I've got then in Europe. It's because again, it's another one that sounds bizarre now. It's Danish people are entitled to club a Swedish person over the head with a stick if they cross the frozen sea between the two countries.
That is some Game of Thrones shit, like
Yeah,
sounding stuff in it.
yes,
That
it
is.
was. Oh yeah, man, and that's exactly what it reminded me of. Apparently, during the Dano-Swedish War of 1657-58, Sweden invaded Denmark in a most unusual manner. King Charles Gustav of Sweden planned to cross the strait by boat when waters were calm. However, in late January of 1658, it froze solid, and he simply marched his army across. This took the Danes entirely by surprise, that they weren't expecting an attack until spring. Denmark panicked and signed a Treaty of Roskilde, which yielded disputed territory to Sweden amongst other unfavourable conditions. And ever since, it's been legal for a Dane to club a Swede marching across that frozen strait with a stick. So,
Amazing, amazing. Wonder if there's any like really angry. Sorry, is it the Swedes that are clubbing the Danes? Sorry, or the Danes that are clubbing the Swedes? The Danes clubbing the Swedes.
Danes are entitled to club a Swede.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any just really aggressive Danes that just wait when it gets really cold and they're just like, I'm waiting for the first Swedish person to step foot on that lake.
What do you think? Or like there's pranksters in the Swedish side when it freezes over said, I dare you to walk across it. I bet you can't.
Yeah.
Not knowing this rule. Yeah. And call their mate up in Denmark. Oi, someone's coming across now.
Or what I'd do is I'd turn around and get like cardboard cutouts of people and put them on the frozen lake. So all of the Danes turned around and were just like, "There's
Yes.
people crossing our river."
Slide them across. Yeah, slide them across. Yeah. And what if you
Amazing.
walked up to the shore and then turned around?
Yeah, yeah.
Tease
Like,
them.
but the
Yeah,
thing is, like,
yeah.
are the Swedes allowed to fight back? Like, whilst it's an entitlement for the Danes to club the Swedes, one would imagine that they surely would have
Well,
the
it
right to
doesn't
defend,
look
or do you
like
have to
they've
just?
created anything. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't look like they've created anything.
I reckon
So
the Swedes
no,
should write into law you have the ability to retaliate by clubbing a Dane who is clubbing you for crossing
but
frozen
it doesn't
waters.
say anything about Danes crossing to Sweden. There's
Oh,
no rule
right.
about.
So it's
Maybe
very
they just
one
don't do
way.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it is one way. It is one way. Well, I'm just looking at the time as well. We do brilliantly at staying under an hour, don't we?
I know.
Let's let's go for it. What have you got next? I've got a couple in Australia as well, by the way.
Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to go to Samoa and then I'm going to skip to Japan.
Oh, okay, I've seen one for Samoa, but I haven't seen one for Japan. So let's hear it.
Okay, so in Samoa, it's illegal to forget. Sorry, I've got to say,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not taking credit for this gag, right? Because it was hilarious. I saw it in the comment of a YouTube video in the
All
research that I
right,
was
yeah,
doing for this podcast,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they talked about this law. So the law is in Samoa, it's illegal to forget your wife's birthday. And then the top
Yeah.
comment on the video was, "How are we supposed to have enough room in all the prisons for half of the population of Earth?" And I just thought, yeah, you know
Brilliant.
what? And again, I don't think there's any like strict rule on what the punishment is for this, but it's just illegal to forget your wife's birthday, which is brilliant, isn't it?
I think the punishment comes from forgetting the birthday. I think
Yeah, that's
that's
probably
enough
true. To be
punishment
fair,
there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I saw that. That's brilliant. And again, it's a fun sounding one. You know, to have a law about that.
yeah, a little bit
That
nuts.
that's mind-boggling, isn't it? That's a mind-boggling bit of that. Uh,
And then skipping to Japan, and this was in 2009. So bear in mind how recent this was, because it's only what 13 years ago.
yeah.
Japanese lawmakers set a maximum waistline limit of 33.5 inches for men and 35 inches for women because it's illegal to be clinically obese in Japan.
Wow.
Can I
Is
just
that still a
say?
law? Is that still a law?
Can I just say I would be illegal in Japan?
Well, I was saying I really want to go there. So, not yet, not yet.
It's like going to be doing like a Beyonce grapefruit diet before your trip to Japan. Wonder if they measure you when you get to the airport. They're like, no, prison, fine.
Yeah, yeah. They probably have a door. Can you fit through this door?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like, did we mention it? I think you mentioned it in the food thing where there isn't there a place where, or maybe we didn't, and I've just seen it. There is a place, and it must be Japan then, where you can fit through certain barriers which are like your waist size, and then you get a discount depending on how small a gap you can get through.
Yeah, I have seen
You
that,
get a
and like,
discount on the
yeah,
meal.
yeah. I'd just like to say my discount wouldn't be very much. It wouldn't be very much at all.
Yeah, but that just shows we enjoy our food.
Yeah,
Um,
this is true. This is true.
right, I'm assuming the rest of yours are probably going to be America, right?
Yeah, I've got a few American ones.
Well, tell you what,
Some.
can I? Well, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, you go for it first with the Americans.
Well, let me do no, no. I was going to do two quick Australian ones. We'll do those quick because they are funny. One is it was illegal to change a light bulb unless you're a licensed electrician in Victoria, Australia.
Oh, right.
And that was actually, well, this was Victorian law. Changing a light bulb without valid license was against the law. It brought a fine of 10 Australian dollars. However, a revision to the 1998 Electrical Safety Act updated this law. A spokeswoman said, while the Electricity Safety Act makes it illegal to do your own electrical work if you're not licensed, changing a light bulb and removing a plug from a socket were specifically exempted from this requirement. Removing a plug from a socket, that was illegal as well. Oh, it's not removing the socket; it's removing the plug from it. Um, and the
Electricians
other
must have
one,
been making a
yeah,
bomb.
yeah. How do I get qualified?
Yeah.
Um, and the other one I got was in Western Australia, it's still illegal to possess more than 50 kilogram of potatoes. I'm just going to leave it there. Apparently, that's since 1946. It's been illegal to own more than 50 kilogram of spuds. Yeah. I think it
Amazing.
started because of the war. I think it was like the food scarcity, etc. But the fact that it still is, and who like normal household would have 50 kilograms of potatoes, I don't know. But anyway, over to you. Let's hear some more.
I had a very, very specific one, and this one I thought was funny because of the nature of how specific it was. So this is Utah Criminal Code,
Right? Yeah.
and this is really specific about the substances that you shouldn't fling at people. So saliva, blood, urine, or fecal matter, specifically named fecal matter. So basically, in Utah, it's just definitely illegal, specifically to throw shit at someone.
Which feels like it should be illegal in most places, right?
Yeah,
It feels like that.
I just feel like what can you not just like sum that all up to like bodily fluids and or bodily materials?
Well, it
Like, did
shouldn't
you?
have to be a law either.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, very
Well,
very strange
well,
one.
actually, I did want to say this, that the fact that over half our audience are American. Hi, and let us know if you live in any of these areas. Go on, what else have you got?
Okay, so I've got one which came from 1924, and this is in Arizona. So it's against the law to have a sleeping donkey in your bathtub after 7 p.m. And did you see this one?
Was that Hangover 4?
Yeah, I know. Genuinely amazing. And I wonder if anybody specifically that owns a donkey has gone out to break this law just to have broken the law and for no one to have found out about it. But
But the
apparently,
illegality is it sleeping in your bathtub,
yeah, so
so it
to
could be
have a
awake.
sleeping donkey in your bathtub. Yeah, I don't know because it says sleeping donkey specifically. And the reason for this was because a merchant allowed his donkey to sleep in a bathtub and the town flooded. The donkey was washed a mile down the valley. And the locals spent loads of time and manpower saving the animal, so the law was passed shortly afterwards.
Blimey. Okay. So make sure it's not asleep.
Yeah, because then it wouldn't have flown a half a mile down the valley, I imagine.
Give us another one.
I've got one about beards in Indiana.
Okay.
So, a law that can a law mustaches are illegal if the bearer has a tendency to habitually kiss other humans. And that's how it's worded as well. It's like what
Habitually kiss.
like but again like habitually like what is like how like what is habitually kiss other people? Like is that once every 6 months? Is that once every 6 minutes? I don't know.
So what, let me fling a couple past you. I've got one here for Florida.
Okay. Florida loves the crazy stuff.
Yeah, so here you go. And I know we've got listeners, and I know we've got a friend of the show who lives in Florida. So if they're listening, it is illegal to pass wind in a public place after 6 p.m. on Thursdays.
Yeah, I saw this one as well, actually. Like, that is absolutely hilarious.
So do you remember I said right at the start, if you can remember then, I said there's one that I'm sure most people in that state will have broken. It's got to be this one. So it's a long since forgotten law is that it's illegal to pass wind in Florida after 6 p.m. on a Thursday. It's never really been enforced, but it was probably written in the 1800s again. It's not clear why this ever became a law or rumored law in the first place, but so many things there. 6 p.m. Why? Thursday? Why? And how are you going to stop yourself?
Yeah, yeah, this is the thing. And again, like, how was it ever enforced to begin with? So this is the thing. We've got to go on the basis that all of these laws were brought in because they needed to be enforced at some point. Like, how close did you need to get to a person? Somebody's turning around, they're sitting there, bursting
Yeah.
for a fight. They're like, "Please be silent, please be silent, please be silent." And they're like, "Oh shit!" And then they get a fine.
Well, in a public place, so you're fine in your house. One other one, you know that classic, the age-old question: why did the chicken cross the road?
Yeah, yeah,
To
hang
get you
on.
arrested in Quitman, Georgia. That's why, because apparently in Quitman, Georgia, it's illegal to let your chickens cross the road. um, there you go.
Do you know what do you know what it is, right, as well? Is I can imagine that most of the ones in the States probably haven't been repealed and all still exist because
Yeah.
there are a list of like American laws that are absolutely hilarious. So if you want me to run through a couple of them, I'm gonna, and we'll just do like a quick like
Yeah, let's
ludicrous
just
test
run
on them.
through these. Yeah, let's just run through these because I've got a couple more. We'll see. I'm sure we duplicate, but let's just hear them and yeah, give a rating.
Okay, so this is Minnesota. Nobody is to cross state lines with a duck atop their head. It's like,
No, I
why?
think that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely
I think
hilarious.
ludicrous but brilliant. Yeah.
Missouri, it's prohibited to frighten a baby.
Yeah, okay, all right. Ludicrous and taking away a lot of fun from people.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like yeah, this is the thing. And then there's another Arkansas. Dogs are to not bark after 6 p.m. Like, how do you stop him? What do you do? Do you tie them up after 6?
Maybe that's why you're not allowed to fart after 6 p.m. in Florida to set the. Actually, I've got one from Minnesota because Minnesota loves a fun law. So can I give you my Minnesota one before you
Yeah,
carry
go
on?
on then. Go
Um,
on then.
Chasing greased pigs in public became illegal in Minnesota in 1971. I think-
1971 is so late for that to come into law. Like that's so late and such an obnoxious law as well. Because how many greased pigs were just running through at that point, or was it still legal for greased pigs to go, but just not to chase them?
Well, just very quickly, they say, yeah, it's illegal to have any involvement in events where pig greased, oiled, or otherwise is released when the object is a capture. So I think it comes from they're saying chasing the pig is cruel to the animal, and it's also dangerous for the competitors. But it's like you said, yeah, it was 1971. But they're saying since it's the law's passing, numerous breaches have occurred and it's rarely enforced. So, yeah, just beware in Minnesota.
Oh
Do you
my
have any
god!
more?
Right, I actually do. Bear with me 2 seconds. Right, so sorry, I was just finding it. This one's from Maine, and I feel like it causes a whole bunch of issues now. Maine, nobody is to step out of a plane mid-flight. So do all skydivers get arrested when they hit the ground?
I just think that's brilliant because to step out of a plane mid-flight, you've got to go some to open those doors, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. There's another one which is again very Tennessee. It's pretty. It's prohibited to catch a fish using a lasso.
Is that a piece of string?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah. Do you know, like a cowboy lasso? I mean, I don't know if whether or not that was because it's difficult or because harpooning it would be more like humane. I guess.
the
Absolutely
lasso?
crazy.
How would you catch a fish with a lasso? Because it'd hit the water and then wouldn't it just float?
Yeah, this is what I mean. So I just don't, either you're a really, really skilled cowboy, or yeah, you're like superhuman or something. Because I don't understand again. Like, was there just a bloke sitting there with the lasso, smacking water for like 24 hours trying to catch fish, and he was just like being public nuisance? Because I imagine that that's how that came about.
Yeah, yeah. Oh dear.
I've got in North Carolina, it's illegal to sing off key. So
Yeah, fair
basically,
enough. That's not ludicrous. That should
yeah,
be
yeah.
everywhere.
I feel like we should have implemented that because the X Factor would have been a lot easier for all those years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This one is a practical one because it is still actually enforced properly in lots of American states. So it's not just Oregon, but drivers can't pump their own petrol.
Okay, okay.
And
Yeah.
apparently that was made to like stop like incidences at fire at petrol stations where like there was lots of like fires or like mishaps with like equipment and that sort of thing. So I kind of half get it, but how many times do you see a British petrol station blow up because somebody's like accidentally decided to light the petrol
But,
pump on fire or
but this is
something?
the thing. I think I'm sure I remember it happening in Italy years ago when we used to go. I'm sure I did, but I don't ever remember it being a thing over here.
Yeah,
If
no,
it
no.
was probably like years and years ago. Now I know the joke about me being old, but I don't remember ever seeing that happen over here. So yeah, that's an interesting one.
And I'll give you three more.
Go on.
So, no camels are allowed on highways, and that's in Nevada. As if a camel's native to Nevada. Like, I don't think camels are in the States, are they? Unless they're in zoos.
Yeah, and so they can go along the side roads, just not the highway.
Yeah, so they can use sidewalk but not highways, which again,
Yeah.
very, very strange. Nebraska, and this is a specific place in Nebraska, Lehigh, and that's that donut holes are not to be sold, which I just
Donuts.
don't get in it. No, donut holes. The
Oh,
holes from
donut
the donut.
holes.
You can sell the donut, but not the
Yeah,
hole
yeah.
from the middle. I don't know if that's a fraud thing because selling a donut hole is air, or whether or not it's just a round bit of dough.
Yeah,
But that's
is it the round bit
terribly
of dough?
wasteful.
And are they saying you're then selling waste or something, something that you're chucking away from an item? I wonder if it's
Oh yeah, so it's yeah. I
you're
reckon that's
selling
probably true.
discarded, even though it's perfectly good, you're selling discarded material.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Where was that? Sorry, where did you say that was?
The donut holes one was in Nebraska in a place called either
Nebraska.
Lehigh or Lehigh. And then this one's again amazing because it's just so specific. But obviously, people in America did own lions like they did here. And this is in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. It's not permitted to take lions to the movies.
Why can't they watch Top Gun?
Yeah, why can't they watch The Lion King?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm also thinking that that's full of things. I mean, you've got to have it in your car or you're walking it down the street. There's probably other laws that could stop you getting to that point.
yeah, this is what I mean. So again, it's like such a specific set of circumstances that somebody must have just turned up to a movie theater with a lion, and then the store manager was just like, "Well, it's not illegal. I guess you can do that here, but oh, I've got a bit of a problem with it."
Oh, God. Was that your last one?
That was my last one.
I've actually got one more. I want to go back to UK, and I need to be careful because I wouldn't say it reminds me of you. Now I've got to be careful because when I say what it is, there's a reason why it reminds you of you, right? No, this sounds bad. It's illegal to stare at naked mannequins, right? Now, I'm not going to say you do that, but what it is. So one of the oddest laws known to have existed in the UK is it illegal for any boy under the age of 10 to see a naked mannequin. The Law Commission Statute Law Appeals Team said this was cited as a law by a law firm in Swansea in 2006, but we have no evidence. We found no evidence. Now, the reason I say about you, it reminded me years and years ago when you were a kid. We went to Blackpool, I think it was, and there's a place called Ripley's, believe it or not,
Yeah.
and it was full of like optical illusions. And one of the things was there was a mannequin. It was a beach scene, and as you walked around, there was a couple of people and like a mannequin of, I think it was like a woman, and she from behind it looked like she was topless. But when you walk round, it was a trick with a mirror. There was nothing there. It was like a wall.
Oh, right.
And I
Okay.
remember you as a kid, you couldn't get your head around that. You were trying to find the rest of the beach. So you were walking backwards and forwards between this beach scene and then the wall, and you couldn't work out. Obviously, you must have been probably like 4 or something like that. But that's why. So I'm not saying you go around staring at naked mannequins. I'm just saying it reminded me of that particular instance of you.
If anybody's listening to this, could you please clip where he said this reminds me of you, and then says it's illegal to look at naked mannequins? Like, could somebody just clip that like 20-second clip, because that's how it would happen.
I'll give that to you. I'll clip it and put it out as a trailer.
We need to start an account up which is just no context casting views, and it's just like
Yeah.
statements just taken out of podcasts that we post with just no description whatsoever.
Right. Well, I think that's quite a good return episode. It felt good, bit bizarre. If you've been found guilty of any of these laws, please let us know. You could contact us at castingviewspod@gmail.com or at castingviews. I think that's right. That's our Twitter handle, isn't it? At castingviews. And you can use those to get, if you want to be on the show, if you want to just say hello, or you want to suggest a topic. Yeah, do get in touch. We'd love it if you'd leave a review, sort of on Good Pods app or anywhere. We like to hear from you. And before I go, Lou, I want to introduce a new feature, and it's going to be called Before We Go. And we'll need a funky tune for it or something. So we'll have to sing it until we do. So I don't know, something like Before We Go. That's what you have to do next week when you host, right? I'll probably put out a tweet, sort of anything from other podcasts to record something for us. But I'm thinking it could be a funny story we've seen in the week, something that's happened, or an interesting fact. And I'm going to start us off with an interesting fact that there's enough gold inside Earth to coat the planet. And it turns out that 99% of the precious metal can be found in the Earth's core. And Discover magazine reports that there's enough gold to coat the entire surface of the Earth in 1.5 feet of gold.
That's a lot of gold.
It's a lot of gold. So yeah, that's the christening of our Before We Go feature segment. As I said, give us a tweet, give us an email to say hi, and we will see you next week. So there's only one thing left to say. So we know there's a lot of podcasts from which you can choose. So we thank you for listening to Casting Views.